Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Hassan Galadari, board certified dermatologist, and I would like to welcome you all for the Unique Community podcast, where we have guests from different backgrounds, different places, where we focus mainly on men's health, and their well being. And with me today is Mr. Sultan Al Darmaki, a person I would love to kind of explore and get to know a little bit more. So, this is a great time in which both of us will be able to get to know one another.
Sounds like trouble, to be quite honest with you, but sure.
So, Sultan, I mean, when we first saw each other, you told me that, you shocked me when you told me that you were a fashion designer who lived in London for a decade, even more than a decade. So, I mean, I want you to tell me a little bit more about this. How did you find yourself outside? And then I want to focus a little bit more on the fashion industry and things that you were pretty much interested in.
I think you and I clicked right from the first
Very
moment we
quickly.
kind of saw each other. It's like,
Absolutely.
you and I can be friends, but we still didn't have the time to kind of make some time for us to be social. I've lived in London for a little bit less than 2 decades. The truth is, years pass and you actually you can't tell. And the conversation that instigated that, oh my God, I have been living abroad for such a long time, was a dinner with a friend of mine, and probably that was like my last year in London. And the question was like, "Oh, how long have you lived here?" And I was like, "I don't know, probably like 10 years." And it's like, "Actually, I've known you a little bit longer." And we did the math, and I was like, "Oh, it's been 16 years in London." But time passed by so quickly. So it wasn't that I deliberately wanted to live abroad that long. In all honesty, I went there for a year, thinking that it will be a year. Um, 2 decades later, I've been in London.
Okay, so this is you living abroad, but you need to tell us a little bit, what is the reason for your self-exile?
Yeah.
What made you live abroad? I
It
mean,
wasn't, you know what? It wasn't a self-exile. It probably was
tell us a little bit.
potentially a little bit.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself first. Maybe then we will understand the both of us why you had to live abroad.
See, the funny thing, I've lived so many lives.
Okay.
So many lives, and I feel like whatever soul reincarnated in this body was like, why did I choose this body, to be quite honest with you? But I went from working for a sovereign wealth fund company when I first graduated.
Traditional job.
Traditional job.
First of all, you're from the UAE.
I'm from Al Ain.
Al Ain.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
All
I'm
right.
from Al Ain. I'm from a very, very tribal family. As a matter of fact, both my mom and dad are from two very tribal families. So
Okay.
me telling them that I'm going to work in the fashion industry was quite a shock to all of them.
Okay. But that happened later. At first, you said you were
That
working for a
happened. That
sovereign
happened.
fund.
The opportunity came with the company that I worked for. They had a secondment program in London, and I took the program. It was meant to be a 1-year program. At that time, I was very much focused on the Ferrari sponsorship. So the sports agency that I worked with was based in London, and it was more getting more experience
So that's
basically.
when you moved to London.
That's when I moved to London.
But then there was a career switch.
There was a career switch, but pre the career switch, before even studying business administration and marketing and communications, um, when I was graduating from high school, I was meant to go to a fashion school internationally and study.
So this is something that you've always aspired to, and this is
Always, yeah. It's been part
okay.
of like, I think we come from a creative family. All of us are creative in their own way. Fashion was an escapism for me. So when I used to see, as a young man, watching fashion shows, and some people don't necessarily understand that, and I find it very difficult to explain it. But watching fashion shows like the masters, John Galliano or Gianfranco Ferri, and all these masters, it was an escapism for me. I didn't grow up in Dubai. I grew up in Al Ain. So Al Ain was still going through a transition. You
That's
guys
right.
in Dubai were more exposed than I was, as a child. And plus, I always tell them my family was like, have you ever watched the movie Sound of Music?
Yeah.
So my family was pretty much like Sound of Music. It was strict.
Okay.
So you wake up in the morning, you go to school, you come back from school at 5 p.m. You have 1 hour break, and then you have your super teacher, and you get your super teacher from, I don't know, from 6 p.m. to like 9 p.m. and then dinner, shower, go to bed. That was my sort of like schedule for 18 years of my life. So when I used to watch these shows, the fashion shows, that was like that was an escapism. That's like, oh my God, what is this? This is fantastic. This is
So
incredible.
that's how it first started. So you saw, you looked at this, you enjoyed it, and then you decided I want to
Yeah, I
pursue
wanted to
this.
pursue that, but it was also how do you convince
The family.
the family?
Yeah.
Like you wanna work in fashion because I mean, no one works in fashion. No one should work in the creative industry because it
You
just
mean no one here in the UAE, or were you talking about in
yeah,
general?
I would say in the UAE, I feel like it was we're still at when I was 18 years old, we're still in the phase of focusing on different industries, and different industry rolled at different time.
Okay.
So when you look at the creative
What
industry right now, it's mature and it's beautiful.
what year was this when you were growing up?
Um, between 90, I was born in 1982.
So this was in the
In
90s,
the
you say, or the
90s, yeah, in
2000s?
the 90s,
Because
yeah.
I would assume that now it would be a little bit easier for
Oh,
the
100%. And I think we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But so I wanted to study fashion. It didn't. I was like, it's not going to work. So I ended up studying business. London happened, and when I was in London,
where did you study fashion by, if out of curiosity?
I didn't study fashion actually. I
Oh,
actually worked in a factory.
oh, you worked in a
I worked
factory.
in a
Oh, this
factory. Yeah. So I'm a cobbler by training, so I know how to make shoes from scratch.
okay,
And that was during my year in London with the government job that I was seconded to. I used to travel a lot between London and Italy, and there was a factory that basically used to produce for Gucci, Fendi, Prada, all these
sure.
big names. And yeah, you kind of learned the skill how to do it, and it,
Okay.
it was first-hand training in
So
terms of
so
making shoes.
this was the first trigger, and then you had the chance for you to kind of make that
This
switch when you were in
was,
London.
yeah, and it was a big decision because, and I actually did not tell my family that I'm switching. I didn't tell them I've quit my job.
Oh,
I
okay,
didn't tell a soul about it that that's what's going to happen.
okay,
Yeah, I sort of that during that year in London, I made a decision that I'm going to quit my job, and I did. I sort of resigned, didn't tell my family anything. The working on Darmaki at that time, it was called Darmaki, which was, you're putting your family name on
yeah,
a shoe. It was a
yeah,
big deal,
absolutely.
How could you, from a
Mm.
cultural perspective, which I completely understand. Um, yeah, I basically worked on my brand and I launched it within a year time, and I didn't tell anyone. What I didn't anticipate when I launched my brand is that we were in an exhibition space in Paris during Paris Fashion Week, and there was a member of the press from the UAE that passed by, and I think there was a bit of an exchange, but you know, I didn't think anything is going to
Mm.
happen out of
Mhm.
it. And she wrote an article, and it blew up. Like it became like everyone overnight started talking about Dermeki, and we were still in Paris. And I remember my mom calling me, and she was like, "What are you doing?"
At that stage, your family did not
Did
know.
not know anything at all.
Oh, you kept it
Yeah, I kept
hidden.
it to myself. I didn't think that it would like get that sort of press immediately. I thought that, building a brand, it will take like 10 years. Generally with fashion
True,
industries, with
true.
brands, it takes 10 years to build a brand and people get to know about it.
So that phone call from mom, was
Yeah.
it a positive phone call, or is it like, scolding?
It was
How?
it was heavy scolding, let's put it that way.
Okay, how did you take it? I mean, did you?
I was young at that point, so you don't know how to take it, and you're a little bit of a rebel, and you go like, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do in life. You know what I mean? Um, but it got to, I think the first year was a little bit rough, and to be quite honest with you, if I put myself in my family's shoes back in the days, I'd probably react the same way as well. But people like me needed to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you paved the way.
Myself, Ahmed Abdurrahman,
Yeah.
um, Sheikh Khalid Allah yarhama, these people we are important to happen because what we did right now is that we allowed a new generation to be able to come and be fashion designers, and we have incredible fashion designers right now, and kids that have actually went and studied at Central St. Martin or studied at the New Design School in New York, Parsons, or any other school, and actually took fashion as a proper career because it is a career, and you can actually succeed in life and financially in fashion. So my story and my other colleagues at that time was an important shift to say, actually, no, we don't want to be, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to be a banker.
But that for me is a little scary because like if so, for example, you're into the unknown, you're
Yeah.
in a foreign land. You just told me that your family were scolding, so there was a little bit of negativity in that aspect. They could easily cut you off.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, they did.
they did. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I mean, I remember the days like when my friend, one of my best friend, he heads a department within Amazon right now. He's Saudi. I remember the days where we count the pennies of like,
Yeah,
where are
yeah.
we gonna go out tonight with like 10 pounds basically. But it was throwing myself into the unknown. But it was important.
Did you ever think it was important? Did you foresee this was important,
No,
or you just was
no.
it you being a rebel with with a cause?
No, in retrospect, it was important
Okay.
because I think that looking back right now, I don't think I would have been the same person I am today if I was still living here.
How so? You would think, would you say that you would probably be suppressed, angry
I
at
would have been
yourself?
spoiled. Like I would have probably been spoiled. Like to be quite honest with you, I think
No, you said spoiled, but at the same time, you have that creativity that's
of
inside
course
that
I
that
would
is
have I would have
suppressed. That you,
suppressed it on so many levels, but I think that the growth that you go through from a perspective that your family says, you know what, you figure it out.
mm,
You have to figure it out. You got to figure out like how this is going to work, how you're going to succeed. But even as a human, you just become more mature and aware
yeah.
of who you are and more conscious to a certain extent of your surrounding, the people, what impact you can have in the future.
Now, do you think it's a little bit difficult, especially here in the UAE community or
Not
the
anymore.
society? Well, no, in the past,
Oh yeah,
because
in my days it was very
it
difficult,
was.
but to the point I made earlier, it was important to happen.
Mm.
We
You
it's
had to break down those
you
walls.
have to break down those walls. You have to break boundaries to allow a new generation to come that allows this.
So, in a sense, I mentioned this earlier, and you
Yeah.
said I mentioned the self-exile part of things, and I think maybe it was maybe for you to kind of achieve the way that level of independence, you had to be away because so that you had to be away from the influence of the society, the community, and also the family.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Listen, it was an easy way out.
Okay.
Let's be real. Like it's because when you remove yourself, you won't have someone to face on daily basis that would basically scold you for choices that you made in life. You have
Mm.
to kind of remove yourself from a situation, and generally in anything you do in life, sometimes you're angry, you remove yourself from a situation. Mine was removing myself from a situation where um, it was almost like a journey of me figuring out myself
Hmm.
and understanding
So
who I am
self-discovery.
as a human as well, because I don't think I would have had that if I stayed here.
Okay.
It would have been difficult because also we come from a very sort of collective society in the sense that you are with people 24/7. So you
Hmm.
never get that chance to basically take a step back and reflect and figure out life, figure out who you are, what you want in life. And being removed from a situation allows you to kind of really you're forced to reflect.
Mm.
You don't have an option but to reflect. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So yeah, you want to call it a self-exile? Probably. It probably was a self-exile to a certain extent, but it was a beautiful self-exile.
And so it was it. I mean, you're here now.
I'm here now
So what made you come? I mean, is it a career decision that made you come back, or
to
whether
move back to
or whether yeah whether the fact that the family or the community has now becoming more accepting, more tolerant, that's the time in which I was able to come back. So I mean, what made you decide that this is the right time?
So I think before getting to this point, my life. So just to kind of take a step back, my life have changed also within a year time from launching Darmaki because within 1 year time, the Victoria and Albert Museum have acquired my work to be part of their permanent fashion collection,
Mm.
which made me the first not Emirati, the first Middle Eastern to have work acquired by such a massive institution.
All right, so I'm going to challenge you with a question here. So do you think that accolade allowed your family to be more accepting
Oh,
because you were successful.
100%.
So
Yeah.
if you had failed, they would have probably been pointing fingers.
100%.
But
Yeah, 100%. I'm
but
going to be very honest with you. 100%.
okay, but because you were successful, that but it makes you think, Sultan. I want to play devil's advocate here at the
Please
same
do.
time,
Yeah, no,
but
I'm here for that.
it makes you think that is it fair, to be, because what if it was your dream to be a fashion designer, but say you were not as successful? I think, families should be more accepting to an individual's, dreams or, aspirations.
Correct, but you also have to think of it this way, and that's why I offer that space of understanding towards my family or the society as a whole. To be quite honest with you, you and I are privileged, and very privileged in the sense that you lived abroad. I lived abroad for a very long time, so our perspective of life is very different.
Mm.
Now, you also have to remember when I decided to basically dive into fashion, there were certain parameters that we were used to, and that was pretty much it. So that's where I always say I'm quite forgiving
Mm.
because we've done something that is quite different, and it's not the norm, and it's not a typical career path for anyone to say, "Oh, that's cool." Don't get me wrong, like I also received a massive wave of support from the younger generation and my generation as well at that time, because they felt that, oh, there's someone who's doing something very different than what your typical sort of path would be. And I'll never take it away from them. But I also got massive support from the royal family because they understood what I was doing. So that also kind of made it easier for my family and I to find a space where
A little bit of a
yeah, level up and
common ground.
yeah, and look eye to eye to look eye to eye, yeah. Um, so I think, yeah, the VNA was quite instrumental in basically changing the views of how
Hmm.
society, family, friends look at the work that I was doing at that time. And I love it. Darmaki is a very big important part of my life, but then also the chapters that came after it were
Mm.
quite important
Yeah,
to
well,
me.
you have a number of other projects that I want to touch a little bit more upon them. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of say, so you decided to come back at when? When did you say, I
To
want to
be
come back?
quite honest with you, it wasn't a decision. So to be quite candid with you, I was in a very long-term relationship for 9 years that ended probably 2 years before me
Okay.
moving here in a very amicable way. We're best friends. But the plan post the separation was for me to move to Paris.
Okay.
I wasn't meant to move to the
To
UAE.
the Dubai.
And I've developed a love relationship with Paris. I've for the longest time ever, I hated Paris.
Mm.
I could not stand Paris because Paris to me was work. If I'm in Paris, I'm going to work,
Yeah.
and it's a 1 week of I'm up from 6 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed at midnight, sorry, and then when I'm back in London, that first day I'm sick. I'm
Mm.
sick for an entire week. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have a healthy relationship with Paris. And when I exited the fashion industry, I wanted to sort of redevelop my relationship with Paris and create new memories in a way, just to see if we can dance together.
Mm.
Is Paris and I going to be friends or not? And yeah, I started going back to Paris, and I very quickly fell in love with it, and I fell in love with the life, and the pace of life there was very beautiful, and I really, really enjoyed it. So my plan was to move to Paris, was not meant to move to the UAE.
Okay.
So what happened is when I had the conversation with the friend that I was talking to you about earlier, it hit me that I haven't been back to the UAE for 6 years.
Mm.
And not it wasn't something that I've planned. It just happened because COVID happened. Post-COVID, at that time I've developed some sort of fear of flying
Mm.
that I didn't want to travel anywhere. So instead of traveling anywhere else, I decided to travel back to the UAE, and I was meant to be back in Dubai for a week. I loved what was happening here, that actually I stayed here for 2 months,
Mm.
literally 2 months, and I
Now you've been away for how long? So it's because you said you've loved it. So that means
6 years. So I didn't visit back here for six
for
years.
6 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
because of
Okay.
COVID and all of that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
situation. So I came back for
So you saw that it's changed. It's
it
it's
changed, and
it's
I came with the mindset that I'm gonna immerse myself. in everything.
Okay.
And I'll say yes to everything. So if someone calls me up or sends me a message on Instagram and says, "You're back in Dubai, would like to meet you," I say
Let's
yes.
do it.
Let's do it. But I also started seeing the creative industry. It was, to me, it was mind blowing because at the time that I left, it's still, I don't want to say it wasn't existent, but it was still in its embryonic
Yeah,
phase.
it
It
was in
was
infancy. Yeah.
baby. It was
Yeah.
like
You
it's
never know if it was going to
you
continue
never
or
know.
that it's going to die off.
Exactly. You never
Yeah.
know. So all of a sudden you come back to the UAE
There's
and
this creative energy.
insane, and you see the creative scene from all different disciplines, not only fashion, art, performance art, music. You go like, this is exactly what
Yeah.
I was
Yeah. Yeah.
craving. And you come back and look at the art scene here. For example, you see Sheikh Al Mazrou, you see Metha Abdallah, you see Hash Al Lemki, you see all these beautiful names, and you go like, I want to be part of this. I
And
want to be
and
part of this renaissance.
and this is, I believe, what our leadership has always been aspiring to, is that to try to attract these talent and have them in Dubai.
100%. 100%. And all of these names are now Emiratis.
Hmm.
They're all Emiratis, these young names that you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
them trending and have their work being bought by institutions. You look at their work and it's not your typical work anymore. It's not a desert. It's not a palm tree. It's not a falcon.
Yes,
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm fully there for that because it's part of our tradition
that's
and that
true.
needs to be
That's true.
preserved. But you see artists talking about they have a different sort of subject matters right
Mm.
now that they want to talk about, and it's quite refreshing. So I looked at that and I said, I want to be part of this renaissance and I want to contribute to it. But I wasn't ready yet to make that decision. So
Mm.
I've always said, I'm going to go back to London. I'm going to spend 6 months. And, maybe I'm jaded right now. So I'm going to go back, spend 6 months, make a decision, and then decide. First week back in London,
You decided.
first day back in London, I was like, I'm just going to call a mover and see how long it will take. Just to test it, test it out. Within 1 week, I
Fantastic.
moved back. Yeah,
Well, this kind of speaks a lot about, like, the success of the UAE as being a place that attracts individuals from different backgrounds, different, we're talking about different, not just backgrounds
absolutely.
culturally,
Yeah,
but at the same time more in terms of creativity.
100%.
Yeah, so it's not just the professionals, it's not just the doctors, the businessmen,
No,
it
no.
is
And I
also the artists.
from Her Excellency Noor Al Ka'bi to the royal family, they had a very specific mandate when it
Yeah.
came to the creative industry, and it needed to grow organically the way it needed to be.
Hmm.
As simple as that. So when you look at it right now in 2024, you see this beautiful scene that has fully developed, and you can see that the projection within the next 20 years.
Okay.
Where is it going to go? And I'm very optimistic about it, especially seeing the talent that we have here. I'm extreme. I mean, I'm back here, so I'm very optimistic about where it goes.
I mean, do you still foresee that this is, if you were aspiring the next generation, especially next generation of, male designers,
Yeah.
do you think it's still a challenge for them to be, to be able to do what it is that you've done?
Um, I,
Or
I
are the means available right now?
I think the means are available. So I lecture at a university here, at the Fashion University,
Oh, which one?
Marangoni.
Okay,
And you do see a lot of Emiratis,
good.
which is really, really, really nice. I don't think it's as challenging as it used to be.
Mm.
I think the narrative changed, the openness to it has changed as well. And it almost became normalized that, someone would take a career in the creative industry. And as a matter of fact, this has been part of a bigger conversation that we were having within the company that I have, is that it's fascinating to see that a lot of the parents right now are my age. So to see that, yeah, my son wants to go and study art at I don't know, in London,
Mm.
or my daughter want to be a fashion designer, and it's such a normal conversation. It's not like, oh my God, like they want to be in the creative industry and
Yeah,
we're worried about them. And I think it was more of like being worried because how are you going to succeed financially with it?
exactly. How are you going to be able to raise a
How are you going to
family?
be
Yeah,
able to raise a family? How are you going to succeed financially? How will you be able to, um, you know, create a healthy living for your family?
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So I want to touch a little bit more upon, at the end right now. So I want to touch a little bit more upon one of the projects you have, and this is basically a plug for
It's
for
for the membership. Admit it. You want the
exactly,
membership.
and at the same time, probably squeeze my way into this membership that I've applied to, but I've never
I,
received any reply yet. So I'm like, I don't know what your criteria is,
it's getting there. It's getting
but
there.
but maybe being here as a co-host or
Might
might
facilitates it.
facilitate the
Yeah.
creativity aspect of things. So tell us a little bit more about 1833.
When I moved back, I very quickly realized that the creative industry now exists. What it was lacking is that they were all sort of working in silo. And in London, I knew everyone.
Mm,
I knew everyone from, I don't know, a banker to a hairstylist to a shoemaker. It was a community. It was a really true,
mm,
true community. Um, so it made it easier for us to kind of get our work done.
mhm.
And I came back here and I've realized, we've created this amazing creative industry, but a lot of people are working in
They're
silos.
unaware of each
They're
other's
unaware, and
talents.
there is a little bit of a click
Okay.
click sort of situation happening, and I don't appreciate that, and I don't like it.
Uh-huh.
I feel in terms of if you want to see growth, you want to get to know each other, and
Absolutely.
you want to support each other. Um, so we created 1833, but we didn't want to create 1833 specifically and only for the creative industry. At the core of it, the creative industry is what fuels it, but we wanted to build an ecosystem around it as well. And the ecosystem consists of people like yourself, consists of lawyers, consists of accountants, young investors, but people who are patrons of the creative industry, and they actually love it. I mean,
Mm,
your work is creative by itself. Within the scope of what you do. So we wanted to build a fully functioning, healthy ecosystem around
mhm.
it. So we took a small pool of people just to basically test our pilots with our programming, and now we're in the process of opening it up to other
I see.
applicants. So
I see.
yeah,
So Sultan, this was like a wonderful journey on your background and have you basically tackled obstacles and broken norms and walls to get to where you are right now. So
alhamdulillah.
I wanted you to kind of give us or give the next generation 3 points of advice, if you may.
3 points of advice. I think one, people will talk no matter what. Do you? Um, be authentic. I think we're at a time where people can read you immediately. So just be who you are. And yeah, take chances. I think those would be my top three. I still live by those three. So that's what I'd advise others to do.
Fantastic. This is such an inspirational conversation, Sultan. I
Thank you. I
mean,
appreciate it.
I
No,
made.
no one said that to me before, but
Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks a
I
lot.
appreciate it. Thank you.